Hello everyone. This is Nick Zetouni and Samantha. There we go. Here today for another video in our beautiful library space. So today's topic, Sam, is
developmental appropriate activities compared to age-wise activities for your child.
So here's the deal. Long time ago, or not too long ago in terms of child care at least, it was very common for child care operators and child care operator itself to give it a little bit of a guidance for operators like us to be pushing activities onto kids that are age appropriate. Which is fine and dandy. We need to, create that divisor there where, oh yeah, like in the current system, you have to work with toddlers, preschoolers, kindergartens, and out-of-school care, which are basically classified by different age groups. Toddlers from 19 months all the way to less than 3, preschoolers from 3 to less than 4, kindergartens 4 plus 45-ish about, and then out-of-school care basically all the way from 6 to 12. But there's the thing, right? Even though that way to classify is pretty good, it's handy and allows us to navigate those firm lines, they left out one of the most important things. What is the child or children developmental stage? I'm pretty sure you're one of those parents like, oh, but my child is so smart, right? And yeah, sometimes we do have children that actually are advanced in terms of cognitive development, emotional development. And then when you start using the whole idea of an age-appropriate activity, if the child is already thinking, let's say the child is 1 and the child is thinking like a 2, it doesn't make a lot of sense to give that child activities that are 1 year old. The child's going to get bored. And we don't want the child bored. We're here to care, to give a good time, right? In terms of activities, in terms of things to do, and things to learn. So Sam, what is your opinion in the age appropriate versus developmental appropriate?
So age appropriate is still very important to consider when looking at child development too, right? Like you want to make sure that you're getting age appropriate toys and things like that. However, when you're looking at developmental appropriate planning or programming for children to learn, it could just very well depend on their skills. So their skill set, like Nick was saying, could easily inhibit more into being very hands-on, but emotionally they could be a little bit more drawn back. There's many reasons for these things to happen, but it's important to kind of notice what's going to be more important for the child or your child in particular to know what grouping would be best.
There we go. So the take-home message for this short beginning here is, again, consider the age, right? There's a reason. Biological factors, as we've been talking about for quite some time here in the videos. But they're not the only one. For operators, for daycares, it's easier to go by group than to go by developmentally appropriate practices. And why? Because you just cluster all the children in one group and you give the activity, and if the child is bored, right, what can we do? But in reality, that extra mile, that extra work that educators can do to make things more developmentally appropriate can actually greatly benefit your children out there. All right. So let's start with a few examples, Sam. Let's talk a little bit of the good activities, let's say for children, developmentally appropriate in the toddler zone. Do you have a few examples to share?
So for toddlers, it's important to start tracing things with them and talking about like the body. So you don't necessarily have to do body parts, but you can start tracing out the body and you're saying these things out loud. So head, shoulders, knees and toes, legs, things like that. You can make it a game, and it's pretty easy, but toddlers are very sensorial at this age, and so for them, a lot of their intake of what they're learning is going to be hands-on anyway. So showing them, start showing them how to take on and off shoes. Those are things that then lead into being able to have autonomy and do things for themselves, but is a skill set that they will have. And it's also important to start helping with regulation as well. So behavior and those things can go smooth. or as smooth as possible for toddlers.
So that's a very simple baseline, just an example, so you guys can at least have that base, right? Lack of words here. But the idea is, if your child, out of the blue, in, let's say, 1 year old, it's already showing interest, or it's already mastering skills quite fast, that's when you start involving, as Sam said, more hands-on, more challenging activities, just so you can match the developmentally stage that your child is. Now, again, a little harder for parents as well if you're trying to do that at home, because maybe your child is pretty good at hand skills, and then tying shoes and putting on clothes, it's super easy. But what about, for example, the emotional side? What about the regulation side? And that's when you should be trying to gauging and ensuring that the child is, of course, like, oh no, my child needs a little bit more of that basal, that first steps even on modulating emotions or understanding his or her emotions. So it's super fine to go crazy and above and beyond on the hand skills, right? Dressing, shoe, etc. But then toning a little bit down on the emotional or whatever other skill we're doing. Again, we're just talking hypothetical scenarios here just to give you guys a leg up. Let's go for the next group. What about preschoolers? What parents should be expecting there?
So preschoolers are now considering themselves very independent as to what they were when they were 2. So now that they have this other skill set where they've done their sensory learning, they're now going to be able to do a little bit more sit down. So they're going to be very much more interested in trying to solve puzzles, trying to, a word in Montessori that I've heard used and seen is mastered. So they'll mastered a task, or they feel that they have mastered a task, which is fine. But then that's when they start trying to color in the lines as well. So those kind of fine, gross motor skills are going to be a little bit more at play the older that they get, because their brain is developing those connections.
And again, out of the blue, your child is not quite there yet. Your child still needs to develop more gross motor skills before going to the fine. It's super fine. Again, what you're doing is giving your child that leg up, that support in developing whatever skills on their own time, on their own level. All right? But again, now you have a little bit of a baseline where children will start basically migrating in a way from gross motors to fine motors. They're going to be more interested in more complex activities that, of course, will ask more from us educators and, of course, you parents at home if needed be. And again, at that point in time, which I think it's very important, lots of interest from the children will be coming too, right? So if your child is out of blue interested in, I don't know, like we do here, for example, in Next Gen, oh, I want to learn a little bit more computers with, of course, the right amount of screen time per day that is very particular to every family, right? You should, why not allow children to start playing with tablet? But not only, like silly games and etc. Try to bring a few educational games. And we do have a few videos in the channel that would explain to you a few of those very fun and engaging games that kids can have. All right, so check us out in other videos. Now, let's go for, I think we can cluster kindergarten out of school pretty much in the same group, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, they will be doing things to their own abilities by that age anyway, and they'll have a better scope of what they can and cannot do. But it's still important to, encourage different things and bring in new topics so they can do different things. Children tend to do a lot of hands-on learning, so providing activities where they can do hands-on learning and get a kind of instant gratification is important for them, because they can see right away that they're gaining this skill, they're gaining this knowledge. Pretend play becomes a huge part into going from like 4 years old and up, and that's really important for development as well. So just providing materials for the children to be able to use offhand, so costumes, things like that would be really fun to have.
There you go. Another baseline established, and even though, of course, again, age changes, the interests will change, and that's when you adapt your skills, your own idea of what activities can be at home for your child's age, giving them, of course, the autonomy that was conquered during the preschooler phase, right? But at the same time, being challenging, being stimulating. Now, my experience, and correct me if I'm wrong if you have something different, Sam, is that that's when things start to really go into a fork in terms of skills and likes and dislikes for most kids, right? They reach that level of autonomy. They already are aware of their surroundings. They already seen and are being exposed to different types of shows or activities. Some kids are going to start showing their artsy side. Some kids are going to be going more into like a techie or sports side, right? And that's when you, as a parent, and we here, of course, as educators, that's when we try to really take care and tailor the activities for their own skill group. But most importantly, to give them things that they're not used to. To the idea that we have to expose them to as many things as possible just so they can start discovering a little bit of they like or not. And if they, out of the blue, start liking something new, as many of you might have experienced with your children, it might be worthwhile just letting them sit on that new thing instead of dismissing right away. And a classic example that I like to do, I even actually had that in one of our programs. It was lunchtime, so kids will usually in that program they watch a movie, and then what was happening is we had a cloudy with a chance of meatballs too. A lot of kids gave me the classic, "Oh, but I like the one better," and it's like, "But did you watch the second?" "No, I just like the one better," right? So children tend to get lazy, as we adults, into learning new things, into watching new things, and being exposed to new things. It's a natural resistance from our brain. And again, there's nothing preventing you to give that little bit of a nudge to ensure that your child is being exposed to things that are actually up to their age. Usually those movies, even though they bring the same topic, they bring a leg up, right? The next level of in terms of emotional exploring, discoveries, and etc. They don't keep in the same level. And it's the same with activities. There's nothing wrong in playing dodgeball all the time, but why not add a new element that is more developmentally appropriate to your child, where your child will be developing new skills just so they can, again, learn and even develop a little bit of taste and liking for learning. Because, as you said, at one point, they're going to believe they're masters of skills. Yeah. And we want them to feel like masters, but developing that mastery into different skills or different levels of skills. Okay? Yeah. Anything else before we wrap up?
No. I mean, developmental practices and age-appropriate practices will always depend on the child. Now, in a child care setting, it will be a little bit more of a group formation because that's kind of the easiest way for us to go about it, but that does not mean that we don't pay attention as to what the child's needs actually are.
There we go, folks. As usual, information for you. We hope you like this video. Don't forget to hit our classic subscribe and like this video, and stay tuned. More to come. We'll see you in the next video.